Alright, you guys, I just finished playing Ghosts of Tsushima, and I have to say I had a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. Anyone that has a PlayStation, this is a must have game. It is beautiful, it is spot on. I would have no shame putting it up there with God of War or The Witcher. It's really great. The visuals are stunning. The combat, the combat, I didn't expect it to feel so good. It's nothing innovative. It's nothing brand new. It's a combat that you've probably seen in other video games before, but for some reason in this one it flows just so good. It's the animations and the gore and the violence. It's really omoshiroi. I loved it. The sound effects, they're great too. And the music, oh my god, the music. No, like the voice acting, everything in this game is on spot. The only thing that I guess I would complain about is that the game gets to feel a bit repetitive after you play a while. And I guess like The Witcher and God of War got that thing as well. It's like you played it for 20 hours and after that it just goes into a rhythm and it feels repetitive. Do you know what they could have done against that? Like maybe allow you to level up a little bit slower so that you want to have access to those cool abilities down the tree. Because I was doing like all the secondary quests and I was doing all of that, and I managed to level up quite fast, and then it was kind of boring for me. And also the difficulty is something that I enjoyed a lot. I like games that are a challenge because I've been playing games for 25 years now, and for me, what is difficult for the average soccer mom is trivial for me. So I need a little bit of a challenge in order to get entertained. And I love the difficulty because it was brutal in the beginning. Like you could get killed so fast. Just I think you could take one, maybe two hits before going down. And because I was rushing through the story, I managed to get to the first boss a little faster than I was prepared for. And I'm not kidding, I spent over 2 hours trying to duel him, and I was getting my ass handed to me because he had to feed his men. So what I do is I cancel the mission, I start doing more side quests, I start farming, I upgrade my gear, and then I go back, and it was so satisfying to manage to get through that encounter. It was just really good. But after you play and you upgrade your stuff, then the game becomes trivial. Like even on hard difficulty, I didn't have any problem from the middle point forward. Everything was just handed to me. Everything was easy. I really don't like that. I mean, they removed all the difficulty. So again, like the tuning with the difficulty was something that I didn't really particularly enjoy. And I think it also added to the boredom. Like maybe if I knew I'm vulnerable and I actually need to stealth and make sure that I don't get a lot of enemies on my ass, maybe that would have made the game less boring. But nah. Again, like the boredom comes after you play for 30 hours or so, just so we're clear. It's like the first 30 hours are really captivating and really beautiful. I had the same thing happen with The Witcher, by the way. You know, like you play so much and you upgrade, you get everything, and then you just want to know what happens with the story because you've been fighting those monsters so many times. You've already done everything. You know, there's no more difficulty involved. So, yeah. But anyway, don't take that as a major bad point for the game. The rest is absolutely perfect. So there is like one more thing that bothered me, I guess, which is the story, I suppose. If I was a teenager or if I was a kid, I would have definitely enjoyed this game. But now that I'm a history freak and I love reading about history and warfare and especially medieval history, the way this game presents the setting made me cringe. First of all, I need to explain that this is not a realistic historical game. Okay, the developers even didn't want to go for that. No, this is a romanticized version of what samurais are like. This is, and it's perfectly fine. You know, it's not something that I'm complaining about. But the idea that the only way samurais get to fight is with honor is like, okay, but what does honor mean? Well, according to them, honor means even if you're outnumbered, even if it's like 50 people to one, you have to look your opponent in the eye when you're fighting. So you're not allowed to, I guess, do assassinations or any type of stealth. Begs the question if they can even do ambushes. But for some reason, like the bow is fine. Like you're not allowed to sneak behind someone and stab them in the back, but you are allowed to use a bow and take someone out from range. Like how does that work, right? And in the beginning of the game, like my God, it's so stupid when you think about it. And this is just something that I personally couldn't get into because I read history. Like I'm pretty sure if you're a person that doesn't read history and doesn't concern with these things, you're not even going to notice that this is a problem. But like in the beginning of the game, they charged the Mongols on a beach. So like all the samurais just charged the Mongols, which already seem to have established a beachhead. And the question is like, why don't you send your ships first? You know, but let's assume they did send their ships first and they lost. Why don't you take control of that beach before the Mongols have arrived? So it's a lot more difficult for them to disembark. Believe it or not, like disembarking is very difficult considering that the enemy is in the water, so they're vulnerable. They can't maneuver as much. While you get to have the land and you can shoot bows and arrows and stuff. Okay, so they managed to get themselves captured. All the samurais are wiped out. And then you find out later on in the game that they have castles. And it's like, motherfucker, why did you send your whole army in order to meet them on the beach when you have castle? What do you build them for? Like decorations? Like, I get it, it's probably, you know, the honor thing. It's like, yes, you know, you need to beat your opponent on an open field. And then it's like, why do you have castles? What's the purpose? Like, if this is the morality your civilization lives under, which is very stupid way of doing things, in my opinion. But okay, so after they managed to, like, escape, you find like the Mongols attacking the castle, and all they do is like they capture 3 guys and they put them in front of the castle gate and they say, open the castle or we burn these guys, right? So they start burning the guys and then all of a sudden the castle gates open and I'm like, oh my God, is it that easy to take control of a castle now? Like it would make sense if the guy was a noble or someone important. They seem to be like 3 peasants. It's like, oh, look at the kindness that the Japanese people have, like open borders for the Mongols in your castle. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're going to stop burning people once they get inside, you know? And this seems to be something your main character does as well when you think about it. Like, in the beginning, he actually goes alone to rescue his uncle in front of a fort that is completely occupied by Mongols. And he goes like, imagine this, okay? This one guy with a sword going in front of a fort that has hundreds of people inside with the doors closed. And he's like, open the gates, face me, you cowards. It's like, does this work? Like, again, if they can do this, because I assume, you know, like it's an honor culture, right? So, if you don't face him, like, people will view you as dishonorable or like a coward or something. Okay, fine. Again, like, what's the point of a castle then? Like, the whole point of a castle is to hide behind its walls. I mean, if you consider that to be cowardly, then, like, why build them? Like, why you need them? No, obviously, you know, like, actual Japanese people didn't behave like that, okay? Like, they weren't suffering from the Tism. But in this game, like, this idea of honor is just bewildering. Not to mention, like, at one point, they even captured a weapon from the Mongols that shot, like, little rockets. I don't even know what it is. It's like, oh, no, don't use it. It's not a samurai weapon. It's like, really? Is that how it is? I get, you know, like, they should have had this honor in XCOM, where you're fighting aliens and you're using their technology against them. It's like, we can't use that, because otherwise we become like them. I really hate this shit. It's such a Westerner crap, isn't it? It's like, do not do what they do, because otherwise we become like them. No one thinks like this outside of the West. You know, like, literally no one thinks like you're under attack, this is your land, it's your right to defend it, by any means necessary. You know, like that. Whatever works. No, but you know, like, what I realize is that honor, when it comes to, and not just honor, but like principles in general, right? When it comes to groups of people, like, we're talking armies here, like massive number of people. When it comes to having principles and standards, or in this case honor, you can only be honorable to your peers. Like, if the enemy combatants also live by the same standards. And we get to see this in history. Like, for example, during World War II, both the Allies and the Axis, they refused to shoot down pilots that catapulted themselves from a plane. So if your plane went down and the pilot would eject and he would be with a parachute, they wouldn't shoot him down. In fact, there were several Air Force officers that said he will personally execute any soldier that shoots down a pilot catapulting itself. The reason being is that, first of all, there was no difficulty to shoot down someone that's parachuting. But the second thing is, like, they're going to land on the ground where they can be arrested by the forces on the ground. That was the whole rationale, right? And the Germans maintained this, and they even called themselves the Knights in the Air, Knights in the Sky. They maintained this thing when they were fighting the British, because the British would also maintain it. But when they went to fight the Soviets didn't maintain it. They would go out of their way to shoot down parachuting pilots. And that's when the Germans stopped doing it as well. Because again, like, you can't have principles if it's not amongst peers. So if you're fighting an enemy that does not respect your rules and your traditions, if you refuse to adapt and you refuse to, like, use whatever you can in order to push the enemy back, then you're going to get conquered. Which is pretty much like the story of the game, you know, like, this is the moral dilemma of the game. It's the whole thing that the samurai were so predictable because of their honor culture that the Mongol managed to take advantage of them. Like, he learned their culture and he learned their way of life and the way they spoke, and he kept managing to get them in traps. And, you know, it's obviously, like, if you're going to have a civilization like that, which is so predictable, you can take a maximum advantage of it. So yeah, that's what I want to say about this game. All in all, it's a great game. You know, the story just triggered me because I've been to history and stuff. And, like, any culture that would behave like the Japanese in this video game would have been wiped out by its neighbors pretty early on. And then the neighbors would install common sense into the people that they recently conquered. Oh, there was, like, one more thing that really bothered me. Like, at one point in the game, your character poisons the Mongols, and then the Mongols use the same poison that your character used, and it's like, how the fuck do they know the recipe? It's like, just because you see someone dying, coughing blood and whatnot, doesn't mean you actually know how to prepare the poison. Like, this is something else in the game. I guess it tries to make you feel bad. It's like, oh, because you poisoned the Mongols, now they're using the same poison against you. It's like, okay, but how did they know how to make it? Like, it should be a different type of poison that the Mongols do, huh? Or do they just happen to know the exact same recipe? Yeah, it was a fun game all in all. I enjoyed it. But let me know what you think, and I'll read it from you guys in the comment section. Take care.